Hello and welcome to the live reality game podcast. My name is Steven and I'm back with more Surviving Reelfoot, the Decennium deep dive postseason coverage. Joining me today to talk all about the game, we have Danny. Danny, how are you doing?
Good. How are you, Steven?
I am doing good. It's been a wonderful day. I got to teach a class, and this is kind of the best conclusion to it. It's gonna be a lot of podcasting in 12 hours. I'm doing this tonight. I'm doing Matty P tomorrow morning, so it's good. It's gonna be fun.
We love that. We love to hear that.
We were chatting a little bit beforehand, but how have you been doing since Reelfoot?
So honestly, I'm still beaten up. During the kayak challenge, I don't know who it was coming in. It may have been Ethan that was coming in, and like the speed he was coming, I like slipped at the same time he was like coming in, so I like banged my shin into the like side of the kayak, and that's still bruised. I think it's getting better. I don't know. I'm still covered in mosquito bites. But other than that, I'm healthy and happy, so I'm fine.
So one of the things you mentioned beforehand, this was your first time having any significant experience sleeping outside or being outside for like in a camping style experience. Anything surprise you?
For me, actually, I was more surprised that I didn't get bothered by it. Like, it wasn't so much like the sleeping on the ground or anything like that. It was more so like just how cold it got at night, and obviously the rain. So those two things, like, I think were the things I wasn't expecting the most, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, if there's anything you could if there's anything you could have brought or packed or wore into the game that you didn't, like if you could wear something or do something else beforehand to like come to the game, make it easier, is there anything that comes to mind?
Be on the pink tribe.
Just
I had
be
much
on a different tribe
for the pink tribe, and that's the thing. Like my warmer stuff was all pink, but then they walked in and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna be on green," and I was like, "Okay, with my thin little jacket, I'll be good."
Okay, yeah, because I think because when I played, I had different like t-shirts and whatnot for my colors, but I just had the one jacket. I'm like, this is it. I'm wearing this no matter what tribe I'm on. It was again still a very thin rain jacket, and I regret that.
So yeah, like for my pink outfits, I had a thick pink hoodie. I had a long sleeve like graphic shirt. I had a pink tank top, and then like flamingo shorts, and then I don't know what pants I had. I can't remember for that anymore. Probably just like some black joggers or something like that. And then obviously you saw what I had for green, but the things that were pink were like much thicker than everything I had on green. So it was like, okay, like the materials are like, here's the pink material and then here's the green material. So it's like, what am I supposed to do here?
Well, we'll definitely talk about the luck of the draw and tribes soon, but let's back up a bit. Talk to me about how you first got into Survivor.
So I originally got into Survivor just because of the fact of I just loved reality TV shows. Like that's really the only thing I watched. Like I remember back, I guess it was probably 2003. I was watching Real World and Road Rules and those things, and like that really got me hooked. So like years later, I think I saw the first season of Survivor, but like not actually watching it. It just came on the television, and I noticed like people were sleeping outside or something like that. And then that was the last time I saw it. Just like with Big Brother, I saw like maybe one episode, and then that was it. Then fast forward, I don't know why or how. I just kind of like I think it was really during COVID. I got like a lot of time, so I was like, I'm gonna go play or see something like what's something I can watch or something. And then I binge watched all 40 seasons.
Wow.
It took me 2 years because I like some of those seasons are a struggle to get through, but that's neither here nor there. But then I just kind of got more and more obsessed with it, and then here we are. And then I found Reelfoot.
So we were talking about it. So it sounds like you found online reality games first,
yes.
Right? And so when did you start playing those?
So originally I started with this like app game called Big Brother the Game, and I was getting evicted like for the third time. And this guy named Dennis was like, "Hey, you'd be really good at this game called Banishment," which like to simplify it, think of it as like Sequester, but like a little bit different. So I started playing that, and like I got addicted to it. I played like I think 11 times within like a 2-week span. And from there, I started like realizing other people had different games. So then it just kind of expanded from that. And then I found the Facebook community section because I really was just like focused on the Twitter section at that point. Moved to the Facebook groups, and that's when I met Pete. And that's how I kind of got into finding out about what Reelfoot was.
And so when you heard about Reelfoot, was the media like, yes, I have to do it, or they're kind of like, I'm not sure about the whole starving in the woods for 7 days thing?
Honestly, I wasn't that worried about food. It was more so just like being outside that I was like, okay, can I really do this? And then like Pete was like, yeah, I think you'd be great. And I'm like, okay, I'll think about it. And then I actually signed up for it.
So talk to me about the application process. Were you surprised to get cast? Were you excited, nervous once you did get the news?
I was surprised because I actually was technically cast twice because I got the original call and I like told them yes immediately. And then like some financial situations came up and like I ended up moving back home with my mom and stuff. And with that move, I finally got myself like back in a better financial situation. And they asked again once I guess, I don't know why. I guess it was like fate or something. Pete asked like at the right time. And he was like, yeah, just you can pay this amount and by this time. And I'm like, oh, look, okay, sounds good. I'll see you in a few months. So, well, actually, it was bad at that point. It was like a month before. So like I had like 2.5 weeks to really like prepare myself as well as collect the money and do all those things. And then then I showed up on campus.
So you have a month once you say yes the second time to prepare and get ready for the game. Was there anything you did?
Nothing at all. I did absolutely nothing other than like panic about what outfits I was going to bring because I didn't know which tribe I was going to be on. That's the only thing I cared about is which tribe I'm going to be on and what color I'm wearing.
And you were really trying to will that pink tribe into existence.
I was really trying to. Like I was like praying. I was like, I need pink. You see, it's behind me. I was like, I need pink. And then I got green, but I love the fact that I was on green. So we'll get to them when we get to them. But I was just really like, I got to have the best pink outfit. Green is kind of like whatever. So like, I guess that was also a kick to my ego of like, okay, well, you're not getting what you want. So this is what's happening.
Going into a game like this, did you have any plans or strategies?
Not really, because I think, again, I was more focused on being outside, but I also was like, okay, well, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be somebody I know. And hopefully I can just meet up with them and then we can just kind of like bulldoze our way through the game. And then by the time I got there, I realized there was multiple people that I knew, but I think that was kind of like my strategy of like, just hopefully there's someone there that I know that I can work with. And that's how we can just go from there and I'll figure out what I figure out at that point.
So you arrive at Reelfoot, and before you see the tribe divisions, is there anyone you recognize?
Yes. So I knew Carl because I had hosted him before. I knew Debbie because I don't know how I knew Debbie exactly. I know we had played a game. Maybe that's probably the only way we knew, but I had recently just watched her. I think it was, I don't know, a Big Brother Chicago.
Big Brother Chicago.
Yeah. I guess I watched her play that because I was really close friends with Josh as well. And then I knew Kiri. I don't know how I knew Kiri. She's very recognizable. So like, I just knew her face off bat. I recognized Trinica because I had just seen her in a game. I slightly like recognized Blake. Knew Jordan a little bit, but I had never talked to her. I just knew who she was. And there's somebody else, but and Tony. I didn't recognize Tony, but I knew his face from something. And that's where later on he tells me who he is. And I'm like, oh, that's who you are. That's why you're so recognizable. So I knew a good chunk of the cast. So I wasn't that worried. But the 3 that I knew for sure was Carl, Debbie, and Kiri.
And so did you talk or meet anyone when you're waiting for the game to begin, once you're at the location that stood out to you?
So I ended up getting there kind of towards the end, and I walk up, like I do the signing with Pete, and then I come back, and Kiri and Carl, I believe, are out in the grass smoking, and I'm like, okay, well, I want to go talk to them since I know who they are, because like everyone else is like in a big huddle. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go talk to them, even though it's like we don't know who our tribes are, so it doesn't matter anyway, and we can't talk games. So it's like, okay, well, I'll just go talk to them. And I'm like, at this time, like we're having a conversation, and Debbie's like looking back at us, and I'm like, why does she keep looking at us? Is she mad at me? What's wrong? But I'm like, I knew who she was, so that's why I was like, is something wrong? What, is she mad? Like, what is wrong? So yeah. I blanked on the rest of that.
So, anything else you want to talk about before we get to the start of the game?
No, I think that's really like all of everything that happened before we got separated in tribes.
So, despite your better pink outfit, you land on the green tribe, the Okina tribe. Talk me through your initial impressions of the people you're with.
I honestly did not want to vote any of them out. Like, just like everyone was just like a very calm, collective energy. Like nobody was like too boastful or too anything. Everyone was just really, really calm. Maybe it's just because like we had the pink tribe sitting above us, so they were watching us. So it was kind of like we can't see them, but they can see us. But everyone just had a really good aura about them. Like everyone just seemed really excited and just ready to go.
And so you arrive at your camp. I forget, is it raining when you first arrive at your campsite?
No, but it just rained like earlier. And then, so it was slightly muddy, but it wasn't like a full mud bath or anything yet.
So how was the Kina campsite?
Honestly, I never got to see the Nankana. So like for me, it felt like we were on like a hill, like sideways. Like there was a slight little leveling, but like it seemed really like small. Like I didn't feel like we had any areas that we could go, especially once it really did start raining and it was just like mud everywhere. Because like it would be really dangerous for someone to try to walk down that hill if they're trying to have a conversation, and it would be very obvious that they're going to have a conversation. So the camp itself was like, it was pretty, but before it kind of turned into a mud bath. But it was pretty when you first got there, but it seemed like it was going to cause us problems if it kept raining, which it did.
And so when you get to camp that first time, what do you do? What is your game plan?
So I believe Joe kind of takes on the leadership role of like, let's start getting firewood so we can just try to we can find some dry firewood right now. Let's get this start the fire. So we start gathering the firewood. I think I don't remember who exactly. I know Trinica was the one that really started the first the full fire. But I tried it a couple of times. I think Melissa tried it a few times. Joe tried it a bit. So we kind of all mixed around to see what we could do. I know Melanie, from listening to her interview, I'm like, well, I now understand why she's like, why are y'all doing this? Why she's just kind of chilling. But we actually that's the first thing we do is start fire. I don't know why we started rice right after that, because I don't see why any of us were hungry, but we start the fire and then we start building the shelter. So half of us are doing the fire, the other half are doing the shelter. And I think Joe's kind of doing the talking of all of this should be here, and then she's running away and gathering stuff. So that was kind of our first thing. I don't think there was really many conversations going on other than just let's get this together. And then once everything was started, then everyone kind of broke off into their little groups and one-on-ones.
Once the majority of the camp is set up and those conversations are starting, is there anyone in particular you're trying to get into a conversation with?
Trinica.
Why Trinica?
I don't know. She always stood out to me, and they are someone that I think that was the first person I saw physically once I got there. So I was like, that's who I want. And I don't know, there was just something about them that I was like, that's who I want to work with, just because their vibe just kind of fits like it would be with mine. Now, also, I wanted to also work with German a little bit, and I also kind of wanted to work with Melissa.
When you were having these initial conversations, was there anything strategic, or was it kind of just getting to know and feeling out the lay of the land?
Kind of getting to know everyone, because I know we also started in a big group and went around and told our names, what we do, our ages, and all that stuff. I think we also did a fun fact of what's something that people wouldn't think about. I think Melanie was what's one thing that someone wouldn't think about you? I can't remember if that was actually day one, but we did those kind of big things. And then I believe, I'm sorry, I blanked again.
I guess any conversations, I guess to repeat the question, were the conversations mostly get to know you and kind of feeling out people, or was there anything strategic happen in those early conversations?
I really think it was just getting to know each other. I don't think anything strategic, at least for me, I didn't have any strategic conversations other than just really trying to fill out who I wanted to work with.
And you talk about how Joe kind of stands out initially by taking charge of the camp. Was anyone else standing out early on?
I think for me, Tony was just because of his physique, like, and he was like relatively social around the camp. So like I think he stood out for me at least.
Mm-hmm.
And I also know that Melissa stood out to a lot of people as well, just because she was so social and like she was like very friendly, like loving kind of energy.
Mm-hmm. So you have your first reward challenge that day, and this is the Quest for Fire challenge. How was this challenge for you?
Oh, it was great. So Trinica and I were the puzzle makers, and as we're like walking, we're just like we're strategizing as we're walking to the station,
Mm-hmm.
and I get there and like I'm like, okay, if it's a slide puzzle, and if I can tell you how to move it, you can do it. And she was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, okay, we got it. So we get to the station. It's a slide puzzle, and it's the original Surviving Reelfoot logo. So I'm just standing there while like everyone's getting their positions and stuff ready. And I'm like, okay, Trinica, this one's there, this one's there, this one's this one, and this one's here. And I don't know, as soon as they said go, we were done. And I'm like, Trinica did all of the moving, and I was like, boom, like that's this. Okay. It was like I think they said it was 9 seconds, but like it was intense, and I was like, okay, that's a great start. Okay, I'm feeling good now. Let's go. Then we get to that.
Was this their 3x3 or was it
a 3x3?
Okay. Yeah, so, if you know what you're doing, you can eat that very quickly, I think.
Exactly. And like I didn't want to touch it. Like I didn't want to physically touch it because I knew I would like start messing it up, but I could tell where it would go. So as long as they had it and like we communicated, it was perfect and it was done just like that. And then it was great to just see like, oh, Tony's gone with the ball, and look over it. I think it was Blake and Sandra, just like you could see them like start to sweat. Like it was like, oh, okay, they hit the oh crap mode. But then we go on to win. So that was great.
So you win this open reward challenge. And before we get to kind of the outcome of this reward challenge, which ends up being the first outpost visit, I want to ask you about some of the opening twists of the season. Mm-hmm. You learned that redemption is going to be in play. What'd you think of that?
I thought it was awesome. Just because you're voted out doesn't mean you're a bad player. It just means that you got voted out. And if you can win your way back in, you can go to the end.
Do you have any philosophy of like, I know I've heard people have strong feelings about like, I would never vote for someone who got voted out and come back into the game, right? And clearly, like that was not a vibe that was had by your season, given Natty P winning the victory. I mean, have you met people like that before? Do you have a philosophy like that in terms of people who got voted out and coming back in?
I don't care how you get to the end. If you can explain it at the end, that's all I care about. If you can tell me what you did and how you did it, and I can respect what you did, that's all I need. And just because you were voted out, again, that doesn't mean you can't win, because it happens.
You also learned that fire tokens will be in play this season. What are your thoughts on fire tokens?
I don't like them. I'm sorry.
Why?
It's just, one, I lose things too quickly, and I know day 2 I had 2 of them, and then I like went to my backpack and I only had 1. So unless someone stole one, I lost it somehow. But my backpack was literally torn from literally before we got into the game. So I was like, okay, I don't know where it is. Forget it. Because like there was one time they gave us all our coins back as well, and like I put it in my pocket, and then I get up, and then German's like, Danny, is this yours? And I'm like, oh, here we go. Already I'm losing stuff. So that's why I don't like them, because I know I'm gonna lose them.
You also learned that Shot in the Dark is in play this season as well. Have you, in any orgs, have you played with Shot in the Dark, or what are your thoughts on it?
I have. I do like Shot in the Dark, just because it adds that extra layer of they could use it and they could win, and now we have to go do something else. So you got to have an extra layer of strategy, and that's where I love it, because I think that's where the Joe vote ends that way, because of the Shot in the Dark.
Mm-hmm. What's your philosophy on idols and advantages in general? Are you looking for them, or are you waiting? Are you trying to just know where they are instead of like being active in possessing them?
I'd rather know where they are. I don't like to have them, but I like them in the general. I like to have that extra aspect of like, I like things that make gameplay more complicated, but I don't want to be in possession of them, because I feel like I wouldn't know when to use it properly. And then I would become the target because I have one, and then I'm voted out with an idol. So that's why I don't want them, but I'd like to know where they are so that I can talk to someone and have them use it on me if need be.
Did you ever look for the hidden immunity idol while you're in the game?
No, I was convinced we didn't have them because we had fire tokens.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was like, because Joe kept saying, no, they've got to have an idol. There's got to be an idol somewhere out here. And I was like, I don't think there's an idol out here, Joe. Like I kept saying it to her. I was like, I do not think there's an idol just because we have fire tokens. That's too many things to keep up with. Lo and behold, there were idols. But I was like, there's too many things for them to keep up with. Like, no, there's no idol out here. And she's like, I promise you there is. So that's why yeah.
So part of the season of the fire tokens is after challenges, players from the winning losing tribe would go attend the outposts. Now, talk to me about this first outpost visit, because I know you didn't go, but I think in our chat, you mentioned that maybe you had something to do with Blake and Carl being chosen from the losing Nankana tribe to attend.
Yes. So I knew that we, like, for our discussion of who was going to go from our tribe, it was going to be Trinica and Melissa because I don't know. I don't remember why we chose them, but I think because the puzzle for Trinica, but I can't remember why Melissa. But anyway, that doesn't matter. But I remember looking over at the other tribe and I was like, I know Carl, and I know he's going to be very like boisterous and like demanding of things. And I know, like, I was looking over at Blake and like from seeing him all throughout like the day, I was like, okay, he seems like he's a vibrant personality. I think they might like be the top two of the tribe. So I'm going to put them together because they're going to probably contrast of what they want. Plus, they're not going to argue with women. So I was like, I'm going to put them two against them just because that'll also take time away from their actual tribe so that they can bond without those two.
Mm-hmm. So are you doing this to help Blake and Carl or hinder Blake and Carl?
To hinder Blake and Carl.
Okay.
Because even if they became like close because of it, that would make them even more of a target because I knew that they were both vibrant personalities that people would be like, okay, this is too much. They're going to lead the tribe. Let's get rid of them.
So when Melissa and Trinica come back to your camp after visiting Outpost, what do they say?
Oh, they have a tarp for us. So now we have a secondary tarp. So we had, I think this is when like that we finally finished the shelter. So like we put I think the original one on top, and then the new one was kind of like spread out on the bottom. Or I think we already had the one on top. We just put the other one underneath for us to sleep on. And then they explained that like the situation with Carl and Blake, that I believe that they just got extra rice because like I think they were going to try to make them go to rocks or something. But like obviously Trinica and Melissa are better probably strategists, that they were like, no, we have more. We can just outbid you. You can get this rice or no. So that's what I believe what happened. I don't exactly remember. I'm still, the brain fog is still there.
Well, having a second tarp is a real game changer, especially given rain.
Yes. And even though it didn't really help at the end of the day for us, because like the night that half of us got evacuated, we were sleeping like with each other, like military style, like 5 and 5. I think that's military style. Don't quote me. But we like I had my poncho over my legs just to try to stop. So like I think it was like partially over me, partially over Joe, but I think Joe had our own. So like we were trying to spread, but it was just still pouring down on us because of the wind. So it was just kind of like the rain direction was going every which way. So it helped because we didn't have to sleep on the actual ground, but like it didn't really help as far as the direction the rain was coming. So
So how are you feeling kind of evening of that first day? You've been a reward challenge, you've won the reward challenge, you have 2 tarps, your camp is set up. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good at this point. Like now granted, this is when like the peak of like my sickness kind of starts, because like that day I didn't eat that much when I had gotten to before I got into the game. So I was already starting on kind of an empty stomach, but like with what I ate, it like kind of made me more susceptible to throw up kind of thing. So I was kind of off to like, and I told everyone, I was like, I'm fine. I have to get this out. Like, it'll be okay. Don't worry about me. Like, don't panic. I just have to go throw up. And they're like, okay, it's fine. Like you can go do that. It happened multiple times. And like, usually for me, when it happens is when I chug water, especially if I'm like having a spell of it. So like if I was chugging water, which I would do because obviously I was thirsty, and like at that point, like it was hot and humid. So it was like, okay. So I would chug it, and then a few minutes later, I'm like, oh crap, here we go. I gotta go throw up. So like that also like hindered me from like being around people as much too, because I was like, I don't want to get sick and then like have to run away from them, and they're like, oh God. So
or just barf in their shoes.
yeah, and then they're like, okay, this guy's gotta go. Like, but they were all cool with it, and that was kind of like the vibe for the rest of the day. Like then we like got the fire started back again. And I think at that point we all just kind of like talked and just kind of mixed and mingled. Like it wasn't really any strategy talk because like we were like on a high at that point because like again we won the first challenge, so like we knew that we were in a better position than they were going to be, at least in our heads, because obviously our camp turned into mud zone, but still. I think we were in a great spirit because at that point the rain had stopped for a little bit. So like we were like kind of getting dry. We're like trying to hang our stuff up, and like people were just mixing and mingling at that point.
So that night, the storm rolls through. Talk to me about this.
So I don't know what time it was, but like we had gone to bed pretty early. And like, I don't believe we made an attempt. Like, I think we did try to like put out the fire, but like leave some coals like kind of burning. And the rain starts kind of early. So like we weren't worried about the rain, but it turned into the lightning flashing. And it was almost like on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. Like as fast as you could like snap your finger, like it was lightning that quick. And like, obviously the thunder was right after it. So it was like, okay. Which, like, again, I like storms. Like, that's my favorite weather. But it was like, okay, this is not like, it doesn't feel like a regular storm. Because, like, I'm from Tennessee. And, like, I know that Tennessee weather can switch at any minute. So I was, like, getting a little paranoid because I was looking up at the trees. At one point, like, it's torrential downpour. And the trees are, like, waving around. And I'm like, this seems a little sketchy. So, like, because, like, again, the area we're in is susceptible to tornadoes. So I was like, this, I know they're watching, like production's watching us, but like, I'm like, but this could happen at any moment. And like, it's going to take a minute for us to get over there. So like, I'm just like sitting there. I'm like, but everyone's in, like, we're laughing about it. Like we're chilling. And like, there was one moment, it was like, it was raining so much, but like, again, the lights was flashed. I mean, the lightning was flashing like ridiculous. And I had to use the restroom. So like I just get up and I'm at this point I'm wearing like a all black hoodie. I have my green pants on. So in the dark, I'm gonna look like I'm wearing all black. And I have my black shoes on. So like I'm literally just like a solid figure. And I walk over. I don't walk super far away because I'm like, I don't want to fall because like it's now getting super muddy. So I'm like, I don't want to fall. So I'm just gonna like walk slightly away. I'll use the restroom and then come back. So like I'm coming back and then Joe lets out like a blood curdling scream because like she looks over and like all she sees is like a black shadow just like walking towards her. And because like I don't think she realized that I was gone. I think she just happened to like look over and just see the figure and she was like, oh my God. Which was funny because later in the night there was like one like lightning clap that happened or thunderclap that happened. And I like screamed and Joe and everybody just busted out laughing. And it was like, okay, we're having fun. But then the lightning strike happened and we thought it was a joke, but like we could hear them screaming over the walkie-talkie. So like we were like, they're just trying to like go back into the like, cabin. They're not playing a game with us. And like, but I can't remember who it was. I think it was Melanie. I think, no, I don't know. But somebody got on the radio and was like, okay, well, if they get to go, we can go too. So they were like, okay, so they came over and asked us. And me, I was like, okay, I don't trust this wind right now. That's the only thing that's got me like a little worried. So I'm going to go sleep on the cabin. Like I'm going up there. And I believe it was me, German, Joe, Charlie, and Hannah that ended up going up to the cabin. Now, in retrospect, I probably would have rather stayed at camp because that patio was miserable because like where they separated us. So like Nankana was on like the far end of the like cabin and we were like by the front door. So like there was like the wind gusts were just literally just like flying through us. And then like obviously we weren't getting covered in rain, but we're still soaked. So and then the patio like wood is like hard you're sleeping on a backpack, and it's like, I can't get comfortable like this. This is miserable. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's lightning. So you're like, okay, how do I even cover my face so that I'm not like seeing this and I'm not thinking I'm crazy? So in retrospect, I would rather have gone back to the camp and slept on the ground, because at least it could like maneuver something to be a little bit more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't as windy at the camp. I mean, at the camp.
Well, it's just wild, and like they showed the photo and the little video of all your camp. I was like, holy smokes! Like I haven't been in a lightning storm in a game. That would be. It's not something I want to experience. I just don't ever want the rain in games I play. That's all I can say.
And the thing is, I was cool with the rain until that night, and I was like, okay, now I'm sick of it. Like this is too much. And like to think about like, because I ended up spending a lot of time with James after I left the game, and to know that he was like literally like a few feet away, I was like, okay, that's scary. I understand why y'all scream now. Like, got it.
So morning day 2, how are you feeling?
I'm prepared. Like, I'm tired, but like I got to be able to get a little bit of rest. So like they wake us up. Nankana goes back first, and then we get up and we walk back to camp. They're alive. So like we're all like talking, and like everyone's discussing everything. And then now we're like still like kumbaya. Like that's really, I think, what the energy of our tribe was, is like the kumbaya tribe. Because there was no like inner bickering, except, well, there was at one point, but we'll get to that because it's going to be after the challenge. But we're just waiting for our first tree mail for that challenge, and that's kind of the vibe at that point. Like we're just kind of getting like hyped up because we already won one, so like we can do it again. We already won, so let's do it one more time.
So your next reward challenge, the first day 2, this is the vertical table maze. How was this challenge for you?
Okay, so it's kind of funny because I didn't think that would be something I could do, which like obviously I didn't get a point for it, but like I almost did. But I, for some reason, thought that I was like Speedy Gonzalez in this game and could be the first runner. And I'm like, okay, let's go. I'm going to be the first runner, which I don't know why I signed up for that, because my shoes were soaking wet and the ground was wet. So like by the time I got like halfway, I was like, I'm about to fall. Like I'm literally about to fall, because like I have no, like there's nothing that's holding me to this ground. Like I'm literally just like kind of like pitter pattering, and I'm like, okay. Then I'm running against James, who like slides in like a baseball player, and I'm like, I literally stare at him for a second, and I'm like, okay, yeah, keep going. I grab the ball. I think I grab a ball. No, I don't grab a ball. I run back, and Tony goes. And it was nice. Like I really like the fact that we all got to participate in it, even though like I knew I wasn't going to be the best at it. At least I was getting a chance to try it and not be like, oh, you didn't get to do it, it's not your fault. Because like obviously later on we're going to have to vote for some type of reason. So I was like, I'm glad that all of us got to participate and get to show what we can and can't do. Because like we discussed and we were very like communicative of what we could do every time that, like, when we were like in our ground table, like, I guess, discussions when we were getting prepared for our challenges. So
when you had the discussions, what did you pitch as your strengths?
So the first time we did, I believe I said that I would be good at puzzles. I would be good at swimming, which now I shouldn't have said that now, because like I have new piercings and I shouldn't probably get in that lake water. But I could have done charades and things like that. So like anything that was like numbers or words, that would be something I would be good at, which like the likelihood of them doing that is very rare, but that was what I told them. I was like, who knows? But everyone pitched. I can't remember what their pitches were, but like they were pretty accurate to what everyone could actually do. So
so your tribe wins the vertical table maze. Do you want to talk about the outpost first? I think there's something else you want to mention about the outcome of this challenge.
No, it's the next one. Okay. Oh, wait, it depends. Who's the ones that are going to the outpost?
So I know for this one, from your tribe, James and Charlie and Tony go from your tribe, with James and Sandra from the Nankana tribe.
Okay, so yes, it is. It's about the outpost from this one. So when they get back to camp, I remember that they got us the ability to dry our clothes. So like not only just one item, but like we could pick an item and all of us could dry it. But the thing is, there was a situation that with it was a minor one, but I was like, okay, here comes the first little tensions. Here we go. But we all had given in like all of our tokens because like that's what we did every time. Is like everyone just give the token to the person because we want to have the majority because we already are in the majority with the tokens anyway. Well, when they got back, I think what the miscommunication was is like the tokens were given out to people, but not everyone got a token back. And so like I know I didn't get one and German didn't get one. So I didn't really care because like again, I don't like them. So I was like, it's whatever to me. But I know the German was a little upset trying to say what like did they steal them? Like did Tony and Charlie do something with this? So I know that was the first little like tension. And I was like, because I know Tony came up to me and I was like, man, it's whatever to me. Like, don't worry about it with me. And that was the first little situation. And I was like, okay, now we're getting into the real game. People are getting angry now. So that was the only thing I wanted to say about that.
You had your next reward challenge is the idle hands challenge. You're trying to knock off a little idol off someone's stand. Who did you go up against in this challenge?
I've been trying to remember this for the longest. I think I went against Jeff. I think. Because I really wanted to go against Blake, but I think they put Jeff in for me. Because
why Blake?
I don't know. There was just something about Blake that I felt like we would be on equal playing fields because like we were like same stature, same kind of build. So I was like, okay, that's who I want to go as far as like my ideal match. I never got that match, but that's neither here nor there. But I think I had Jeff, which I won my round because that was one of the challenges I really wanted to do as well. Like that one and the eating challenge were the ones I wanted to do. So I knew my strategy because I have long arms. So I just kind of like put it as far away back as I could. Because like being a dancer, I also have extension. So I was like, okay, let me just push it as far the way back. And then I can just kind of wiggle. And I'm pretty sure it was Jeff. Because I know it was a person that I felt was shorter than me. And I know I didn't do it against James. It wasn't Blake. It wasn't Maddie. And it wasn't Carl. So yeah, it had to be Jeff. So yeah, but I loved that challenge. That was one of my favorite ones. Plus, we got the awesome reward. So
yeah, so your tribe wins this, and talk to us about the reward you go on.
So originally we were supposed to get a boat ride, but like due to the rain, like I think they had to like cancel it, which was fine. Like we still got to have a nice experience. So like they took us to, I forgot what it's called, but like a nature park kind of thing. Now granted, I wish we could have been like on a go-kart or something, so like we could sit down for a little bit, but that's fine. But like
Melanie said, all we wanted was a chair. There was no
like
chairs.
All we wanted was a chair. That's all we really needed at that point. That would have been just a great like just give us some chairs for a second. So we walk through there, like we see like I think a couple owls, there's some eagles. I think there was a vulture, but don't quote me. There was another type of bird. Then we go off into the actual like lake, and they take us to a gazebo. That's where we get our like lunch that we our little small lunches that we got, which I don't know if it was intentional, but in the bags for some of the bags there was an extra fire token. So I ended up taking mine, which I was really dumb and put it in my boot, which I had like these long rain boots on, and by like I didn't think about it and it ended up falling to the bottom of my shoe. So like I'm now stepping on it and it was the most painful thing ever. But then like we go in, like we also get to see some snakes as well. So like, which funny, like that'll be a later thing. But like, I think Hannah gets to put a snake on her arm. I like touched it, but I was not, and it felt kind of like, it was weird textured. I don't even know how to explain it. But then like, from there, like a few other people touch it, and then they take us back to camp because like now we're behind schedule. So like they're like, we got to get back. It's time for your next challenge.
Yeah. So to the day up to this point, were there any developing alliances that you were being involved in, or any strategy talk?
Not really. I think for me, I was too busy kind of like learning from Joe. Because I already knew at that point that from where people were kind of hinting that she would probably be the first one out. So like, and the way it seemed at camp is like Joe kind of stood off a little more. Like she was more there for like the survival experience, not so much for a survivor, if that makes sense. And for me, not ever going outside and being outside like that, Joe was like literally like she was chopping wood and doing all these things. And I was like, okay, well, she can teach me how to do some of these things. I'm going to learn to do these. So like I ended up chopping wood and those type of things. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. This isn't as hard it was. Like, okay, this is cool. So like, I don't think there were anything major that was happening, but I do believe I know around when the Sexy Six was formed. And I believe it was around here because I remember sitting in the shelter, and I noticed like there was like a group that was like down, which in the weird area where like no one should be just like standing down because it's so muddy, you're gonna slide down the hill. But like there was just like a group of them down there, and I didn't pay any attention to it, but I was like, that's really weird. They've been over there for a while, but I just didn't pay it any attention. I was just like, I was too tired by that point because I was like gathering wood and trying to keep the fire going and all those things. I wasn't like I couldn't think of strategy at that point because I think originally on day one I was preparing to go in like someone's getting eliminated today, because if with the redemption twist I was like, well, why not? So like, why we can send someone home, and I was like ready for strategy. And I think those 2 days without it kind of like pushed my like strategic, like maybe I should be working now kind of idea. But I took that just kind of more, I guess, lax at that point. I wasn't thinking strategy because I was like more just thinking of surviving, because I think Joe really influenced that like to me. And I'm like, okay, well, I see what you're saying. We can't eat if we don't have these things and that kind of thing. So
you're spending a lot of time with Joe, even though you are getting suspicion that she may be the first person voted out. Is there anyone else you're talking to or feeling close with?
So I felt close with German. Like we spent a lot of time in the like under the shelter because like I don't know, he slept a lot the first 2 days. So like and I also slept a lot. So it was like we were both asleep most of the time. So like when we would wake up, we would start talking about stuff. So like that would be our kind of like strategy talk for the most part. I know at one point I messed up when I told him that I didn't really like feel any way about Hannah. Because like his demeanor changed immediately as soon as I said that, and I was like, oh. And I didn't again, strategy was not in my head at that point, but now in retrospect, I was like, oh, that's because they were actually trying to work together, and I was not thinking that, oh, they were together. I talked a little bit with Charlie, so like that was when Charlie and I were trying to getting close. I talked with Trinica, I talked with Melissa. I didn't really get much time with Tony, Melanie. Yeah, I think it's really Tony and Melanie. And kind of a little bit with Ethan, because like I think they were like, as we were mixing and mingling groups, like it just we never ended up together, if that makes sense. And like I know at one point Tony was like, yeah, we got to talk a little bit later, like I want to get to know you and all those things. And I was like, yeah, we can do that. That never got to happen because of this situations. But I know that like we all talked within each other, but I was talking to Joe more. But I also know couldn't just stick around Joe knowing that that's kind of the target at this point. So like, let me just be around her so she's not isolated, but also lets me go and see where I can figure out where I'm at right now too.
Physically, how are you doing at this point?
I'm still fine at this point. Like I'm still like the throwing up thing is still kind of a thing, but I'm like doing it less because I think my body is adapting now to where I'm at. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm feeling fine at this point. It's still raining. So like it's not like torrential like downpour, but it's still like raining. But it was raining heavy during the board challenge. But by the time we got back to camp after the reward challenge, it had calmed down a little bit. So
so heading into your first immunity challenge, this is a kayaking challenge with ends with a puzzle. How was this challenge for you?
Terrifying.
Why?
Now, just because the way it started, because like I had never been kayaking before, and like also knowing the risk, like I have to do it like kind of like quickly because we're racing against the other team. So like that was in my head, but they were also like, these things flip over. And I was like, okay, I'm not trying to fall in here with this. Like if I was prepared better, like as far as like something to cover my ears, like to swim, I would be like, okay, I'm down to swim. But like I was scared I was going to flip over. So like I was terrified the entire time. And then as soon as we started and James flips his, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die out here. Today is the day. It's it. But I was like, okay, but just face your fear. It's going to be fine. And I did fine. Like I panicked a little bit because I like got off the course a little bit, but then I was like, okay, we can do this. And then, but I think it was Carl coming at me, somebody was coming at me, And I was like, oh God, let me get out the way. So it was a fun challenge. I kind of wish I wanted done the puzzle, but I also was like, I can't do the puzzle every time. So let other people do their thing. And I mean, German and Tony did a great job at that too. So like, it was terrifying, but I was like, okay, at least I faced my fear of like flipping over. And also I got to kayak for the first time.
So your tribe wins this challenge. You've dominated the first 4 challenges of the game. You're not going to the first tribal council. Heading back to camp, what's the vibe of the tribe like?
So at this point, this is when we start telling each other. Like, I think as soon as we win, we're like, okay, like we're celebrating, and then we like all of a sudden just stop because we're like, okay, we can't be this cocky. We gotta calm down a little bit because karma's gonna get us if we don't stop like doing this. So we get back to camp, and everyone's just really happy. Like we're just trying, like we're in a great mood. Like everyone's just getting the camp like settled back up for the night, and we're just like at this point we're still a vibe. Like nothing's like wrong at this point. We're just like, okay, let's all get ourselves prepared for tomorrow because it's gonna be game on at that point. And that's kind of how we ended the night. Like it was kind of cool. It rained again, but like it was cool until later in the night. So I decided this night that I was going to sleep outside of the shelter. So like I had laid my poncho down on the ground. German slept beside me, and I was out there with him. So it was me and him out there by ourselves. Joe was sleeping under a tree. And then the rest of them, I don't know, I couldn't see them. So like they were just kind of like mixed and mingled back in the actual shelter. So it's like you could hear like raindrops every so often. So like we couldn't tell if it was raining or if it wasn't raining. But then you could hear like coyotes or something. Like you just hear howling, and then you could hear like people like screaming, like not like screaming like scary screaming, but like they were hunting for something screaming. Like it was like chaotic noises, like just all these things. Then Parker comes down and he like comes and talks to us for a little bit, and then he leaves. And he's like, this is the last time we're coming down here. And we're like, okay, cool. A little bit of time passes, and like everyone's gone to sleep. The fire has gone out, and Joe is still awake. And the way we had like our flashlights, one was sitting on top of the tent. I don't know why it was up there, but it was like facing off into the distance. And then they had one inside the shelter. All of a sudden, like I hear Joe say, "Who's there?" And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm like immediately alert. Like I jump up because like, again, I'm sleeping separated from them. So I'm like, it's going to get me first. So what are you talking about? And I'm like, Joe, what are you talking about? And she's like, I heard footsteps. And I'm like, oh no, we're not doing this. Like, this is not, you're not doing this. And I'm like staring into the abyss. Like I'm looking in the direction of like where we'd come in and out of camp. So like, I have a visual of down the, our trail. And I'm like, I don't know if it's because I was like waking up and like I don't know if I had my glasses on or anything, but like I could just see stuff moving in the distance, and like there were lightning bugs, so I couldn't tell if it were eyes and stuff. And Joe's talking about like I heard footsteps walking towards the camp, and I just lost my mind. I was like, where is the flashlight? Like I was like, can y'all give me a flashlight? And everyone else is like asleep, but they're waking up because now they hear me like, where is the flashlight? And I'm like, I knock on German. I'm like, wake up, hold on, because if people are out here, we gotta be ready to do something. Because there's an animal out here, we gotta be ready. Then I get up and I'm like, okay, because I didn't want to get up. That was the other thing, because like my shoes, like the camp isn't like a mud fest at this point. If you walked on it in shoes, you would literally sink through it. My feet had been covered in mud all day, so I was like, I finally had cleaned off my my feet. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Okay, forget it. I'm just going to go get this flashlight off this thing, because who put this up here? Why is this up here? And I grab it and I'm like, okay, who's there? I'm looking down the thing and like, I'm like, there's literally nothing here. Like, what just happened? Like, why did this happen? So next morning, Joe tells us like that she heard footsteps, but it was coming from like the other direction. Like from like, it's hard to explain, but like, here's our tent set up. And then like there's like a little section, but like there's a big drop off right after. So like you could kind of go over there, but if you went too far, you kind of start sliding. She said she heard it coming from over there, and I was like, how could anyone even get up there, Joe? Like, they'd have to like scale up, like there's no way. So I did all that just for, and like I couldn't sleep the rest of the night until
And
I
this
realized
is
I
when you
was
learn that every other person in the game except yourself is a paid actor helping manufacture this experience just for you, right?
like this. At this point, I'm literally thinking this. So somehow I don't fall asleep until I fall asleep. But then I wake up because I'm like, okay, wait, now I'm freezing. So like I just get up and I go into the the shelter and I get in the very back. And like this was probably when I gathered like the most of my mosquito bites, because all I had at this point was like it's not these shorts, but I had like some shorts, my BMO shirt, which like it was like, I guess from it being wet and like drying and wet and drying, it had like shrunk up a little bit. So like my stomach was exposed. And then I had like all my jackets were wet. So like I had no shoes on. So I'm just like really just out here, just out like basically naked, just getting covered in mosquito bites. And I'm just like, this is miserable. Then eventually like I fall asleep for a little bit and like I get up, and by the time I get up, Ethan and Trinica are like over like by the fire. And Ethan's tending it for the most of the night. So I think Trinica got up a little bit later. And then after a little bit later than that, I fall asleep again. And then I think Melissa is over there with them. So I get up and I'm like, okay, I can't sleep anyway. It's cold. They've got a fire going. Let me go sit over here. So I go sit. Then Hannah gets up. So like everyone starts getting up. Some people go back to sleep. Like it's just now we're like a cycle. No one's really sleeping because like we're all cold. Like we're cold and wet at this point. But again, I don't see any strategy talk unless it's like I could see Ethan and Trinica probably having some, because there was a lot of time that all of us were sleeping. It was just them. So I think that like that was like our like kind of in the end of our night going into that next morning, because by the time like we all got up, I think it was probably, I don't know the time really, but I'd say about 5, 6 a.m. We were trying to guess. Like we just kind of stayed up and we're like, okay, we made it through the night. Like we'll get ready for the challenge. We'll see what happens. And at least we're not going to tribal this morning. And that was night 2.
So rolling the night 3, day 3, could you rank me the players in your tribe by importance they are to your game?
Yes. So at that point in time, it was Trinica, Charlie, Jeremy, Melissa, Hannah, Melanie, Ethan, Tony,
Joe.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that Charlie's so high on that list going into day 3.
I don't know what happened. I don't know. I still don't know. Like I can't remember why it flipped, because day 1 it was Trinica and then German, but then day 2 it was Trinica and Charlie. And I don't know if it was just like where we just kind of were together, and like he kept saying he wanted to work with me and all these things. So I was like, okay, I kind of trust this dude. Like he's kind of cool. Like I can deal with him, and like listening to his stories and stuff, I was like, okay, I can relate to him. So let me see what I can do with that.
Do you think anyone was throwing your name out at this point?
No. Until I don't think my name was thrown out until the actual vote, like the Joe vote. Because I remember when it like happened. Like I remember hearing it.
So Debbie is the first person voted out of the Pink Tribe. You find this when you head to your next mini challenge. This is the silent relay race where at different points people can't see or talk or hear. How is this challenge for you?
So as they're walking up, we decided I recognized them like almost slightly like a minute or so before everyone else that Debbie was gone. And I started telling everyone, and we started singing happy birthday to Debbie, because they voted her out to like the day after her birthday, but we were like, we didn't know if it was the day of or day after. We were like, y'all are brutal to send that woman home on her birthday. Like, why would y'all do this to her? But we were like, okay, we're going to be petty and do that. But they were like, they didn't care. They just kind of laughed and moved on. But from there, I decided I was going to, Trinica and I were like, okay, well, we killed the puzzle last time. I know I can't run. Like I realized that back at the puzzle, the slide ball thing challenge. So I was like, okay, I can't do this. Like, I'm not going to be able to do this. let me go to the puzzle. I'd rather do that. Because like as we were walking through the challenge, I was looking at the puzzle pieces and I was like, okay, I know what this is. Like as long as we can get there, we'll be fine. So we then start strategizing who's gonna like put like where. So Tony's, I think he volunteered to be the first runner. I don't remember where everyone else was because like I just knew I was at the end and I wasn't listening anymore. So I was like, I'm just gonna look at these puzzle pieces. Y'all decide what y'all are doing. Because like again, we were gonna do that same strategy of as long as I could tell Trinica where the pieces go, that's how we were gonna do it once again. Because we were like, okay, we're already dominating, we don't have to worry about it. But this is again where we were like, we shouldn't be cocky on that last immunity challenge because that's where it came back to bite us.
So do you think you were too cocky in this challenge? Is that what went wrong?
I think we were too cocky going into it. Like we like again, we sang happy birthday to Debbie, like as if like, oh, we're superior, y'all gonna lose again. So it was like, okay, y'all did all this, and then now look at you lost.
So this challenge does not go well. Your tribe ends up losing. So you will be going to the second tribal council. Talk to me about the strategy and the scrambling back at camp.
Whew. So this one, I believe that in my head, it was going to be a 9-1 vote on Joe. And I went around, I talked to, like basically, I think it was Trinica who I talked to as we were walking back. I think I caught up with German. He said the same thing. Like it was all like, that was the plan going forward. Then I was like, okay, I can't let this girl feel like she's alone. So I'm going to go talk to her. Because like also people were saying she's not even talking to us. It's like, I don't know what to do. So I go and I sit down with her and I'm like trying to give her a pep talk. I'm like, listen, because like she's already like, I know y'all are voting me out. It's whatever. And I'm like, girl, we're not doing this. So I'm like trying to give her a pep talk. I'm like, listen, if I were you, because like she kept saying she didn't know how to strategize. Like that's where like the rest of us are good at. She's good at the survival. And I'm like, okay, yes, but you can learn to be good at anything. So I was like, okay, if I were you, you have enough time right now to go to each and every one of these people and just plead your case on why you should be here. Give them other plans. And like, that's what you need to do. You shouldn't just be like, okay, well, I'm going to start gathering my stuff now. Like, no, they come out here. You came out here to play, go play. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, so you should go and play. Like there shouldn't be an easy vote. Well, after I have that conversation, she's like, I don't know. It takes her a little minute before she goes and talks to people. But I believe it was me, Hannah, and Ethan. We were in the area where Joe had scared us at. And I believe Ethan comes up to me and like into the conversation and he's like, well, what about a split vote? And I was like, well, what will we split it on? And like nobody was giving answers. And I was like, okay, now Joe was now, for some reason, I don't know why she chose Melanie, but Melanie was her target. So I was like, well, if you want to do Melanie, and they were like, eh. So I was like, okay, well, we'll rehash this conversation. We'll figure it out. So I'm still bouncing around. Everyone's talking. I still did not get a chance to talk to Tony. Like I'm still waiting to talk to Tony, but I ain't had a moment. So like, that's neither here nor there. So we're getting to the last few minutes of the scramble. And as I'm walking out, I believe I'm standing beside, I can't remember who I'm standing beside, but I hear my name in the like behind me. And I'm like, I pay no attention to it until I like obviously I see my name on the parchment, but I'm like, oh, that's when it switched. We were already leaving, and that's when they switched up on it. They should go for me, which again I think was a brilliant plan in case that Joe had an idol or some type of advantage. Because in my eyes, looking at it, I'm like, okay, well, if we can't get her out, well, let's get the person out that's the closest to her. So that way, next time we have an easy vote. Because then she's already used whatever she has, if she has anything. So I was like, okay, that's a brilliant plan. I can't even be mad at it. I was like, that's cute. But yeah, that was the scramble, at least until we get to the tribal. And again, the vote goes as it goes.
So you probably weren't surprised by Joe voting for Melanie, and you probably weren't surprised by you and being majority voting for Joe. You probably were just not expecting to see your name come up 3 times.
Correct. And I was like, oh, I really just got played. Like I thought it was really about to flip. Like I was like, okay, there's going to be not enough Joe votes, and it's about to be me. They really just got me. And then I was like, but then I thought about it and I was like, oh, I see the strategy of why it went to me. And like, I'm surprised on who it was, but I'm not surprised that they did, being who they are. Cause like they're great players. So I'm like, I can't even be mad at it. Cause I know that there was like, from Melanie's discussion of it, there was supposed to be a flip between her and him, I think, which I think it was great that Melanie took it on herself to cast the vote. Like, that's cute to me. So yeah, I was shocked, but I wasn't surprised, if that makes sense.
So going back to camp, what did you do?
So I think this was the time that we actually didn't go back to camp. We went to like, because I think we were so close in timing that they needed to get the next challenge in, that they just let us go sit kind of by the cabin, but like we were over, like, I don't know what to really call it because it's not like the shed area thing. So we were sitting there and I was like, in my head at that point, I was just like thinking, and I was like, who is it? Like, that's all I was thinking about. Like, I wasn't talking to anyone. Everyone else was chilling, but I was just like, who was it? Like, I immediately think about it. I'm like, okay, well, it has to be Melanie, because that would be like, that makes sense. Cause like, if she's not if she's not going to vote for herself, so if she didn't vote for Joe, she would it has to be me. So I'm like, I was just like, it has to be Melanie, but who else would be on that like the other two? So I was just like scanning everyone, trying to figure it out. And I was like, oh. And I never figured it out until like I got to the cabin. But like, I was like, who is it? It's one of these people. And I don't know who it is. I'm having a hard time reading them because they're not even looking at me.
How worried were you at this point? That's saying, oh shoot, if we lose, I might be the next person voted out.
I wasn't worried about being voted out at that point, actually. I was more so, this was when I started to actually feel like the worst part of my sickness. Because this is where obviously where we're getting to. But like, that's when it kind of just started up, because I was like, ooh, maybe I'm like just kind of like this is like a shock reaction, but I'm just like, I'm not feeling the best. Like I'm like, I don't know, I can't even like breathe right now. So like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, that was kind of like where my mindset was going. So I was just like, I just kind of sat there as like, I could be next, but I also know I can talk my way out of that if I need to, because Joe's not here anymore. So I don't have anything to be worried about as far as, oh, you're too close to Joe. I can find a dynamic and flip it if I need to. But that was when I was like, oh, I don't feel the best at all.
Was Joe the ideal first boot for you?
Yes and no. No, for a selfish reason, because I was learning the most as far as outdoorsy skills from her. And I also felt like we had some really good, genuine conversations. But yes, because I was like, okay, well, if she's going to keep being separated from the rest of us, why is she going to be here? And if everyone's with that, then I might as well just be with it too. Because like, why else would I not?
Who else would you have liked to target for the first boot, if not Joe?
He's gonna love this, but I think I told him it was gonna be Tony,
just because you hadn't talked to him.
And like, it was that, and like, I knew I recognized him, but I also was like, he's gonna be a threat later on, and I don't like to take out people for being a threat, but I'm also like, he's gonna be someone I need to watch. So I'm like, if I get out anyone, I want to be the one that like takes Tony out. And like, and then like, as we're walking to tribal, that's when he tells me that like, oh, we just played a game together, and I was like, oh my god, now I know who you are. And that's where I think I was like, there's something about this man, so I think I need to get him. Like, I gotta get him for some reason. But like, again, he wanted to have that conversation with me, so I was like, okay, well, whatever, we'll see what we can do with that.
I mean, so with Joe going home, your name potentially being up now that the genie's out of the bottle, is there a person you were thinking like, maybe I need to target this person? And is that just Tony?
It was just Tony.
Okay, yeah. So
yeah, Tony was Tony the entire time. So you, Tony.
You roll into your next immunity challenge. This is the Steal the Bacon challenge. Do you remember who you went up against in this challenge?
Oh yes, I do. Mr. Carl.
How'd it go?
Horrible. My God. So I don't like this challenge. I'm sorry. It's just because of my piercings. That's the only reason why I'm like, I don't want to do physical contact, especially how they were doing it in this challenge. I was like, that's not for me. But I run out there Carl, I let Carl get the ball because I'm like, Carl already beat me in running before. I'm not doing this again. So I'm like, let Carl get the ball. What I'll try to do is trip him. All he did was like juke me one time, and I was like, oh, it's over for me, girl. Like, I can't do this. And like, he just books it back to the thing. And I'm like, you know what? But mind you, this is also, I'm still feeling sick. So I'm already winded before I even start running. So I'm like, when they were like trying to like see who was going to go again, I was like, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
I will literally die right now. Please do not sit, like, don't let me go up there. Because I was like, I'll take this role. I'm just going to make sure y'all get water. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't feel comfortable. And Melissa was the same way. She was like, I don't want to do this. I mean, she did it, but she was like, I don't want to do this again. And I was like, but you, like, we're not doing this again.
Mm-hmm. So your tribe loses its second time in a row. Talk me through what happens as you go back and get to camp. At this point, Melanie is gone at the outpost for your tribe with Jordan from the other tribe.
So I was honestly hoping we were losing. And when it got to like the point that they were winning so much, I was like, okay, cool. Because at this point, I already had decided that I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I couldn't physically breathe anymore. And I was like, I as much as I want to play, I can't breathe. And it doesn't feel like, I don't feel comfortable. Like, I feel like I could possibly need to go to the hospital. I'd rather get into a safer condition than try to test myself for this. Like, I've done enough that I feel comfortable with what I played. So as soon as we lose and like they let us separate, like they let Nankana go back first, and then like we go over to pick our stuff up. And at this point, I'm like already tiring to tear up because I'm like, I don't want to quit necessarily, but I also don't think this is safe for me to keep trying to do this. So I'm like, I immediately go up to Trinica and I'm like, I think I need you to vote me out. And she was like, don't do this to me. And I was like, no, seriously. And I was like, okay, well, just give me a hug. I'll try to think about it. So I'll give her a hug, and then they walk off and go, I don't know where they went at that point. So I'm like, I think I end up walking back with Trinica though. So like, I think we like went around, grabbed our stuff, and then that's who I was talking to as I was walking back. And like, we were trying to like low key strategize, I think. And then we get to camp, and I think Melissa comes up to me and she's like, this is when I start actually, like the first time I start crying. So she's up talking to me, and like, she's like, we're like just really expressing like how I felt about like how I felt in general, like how proud I was of like where I was at. And like, I really needed them to just vote me out at this point. I'm not quitting. I just would rather have a regular vote out like everyone else. Like, I'm not trying to leave right now. I'm going to stay until y'all put the torch out. But I just wanted to do this in the regular way. So I go, she talks with me for a little bit. And then like, of course, I don't know who it was. I think it was Stan, but he comes directly in front of us, and I'm like snot and everything. And I'm like, but like, whatever. I was like, you've been filming us all week. It's fine. So I'm like, I'm still talking to Melissa, crying and whatnot. And then I get up and I go talk to Charlie. So then Stan follows me, I think, to Charlie, and we sit down in the shelter. And he's like, he starts talking to me, and he's like, so yeah, I'm not trying to vote you out. I'm trying to work with you. Cause like, I could tell at this point, I think he was a little worried that it could have been him. Just the way he was acting. And I was like, he was like, I really want to work with you. Like, we can do something. And I'm like, no. And I put my hand down. I was like, no, Charlie, I would rather you vote me out right now. And that was probably the saddest moment for me in the game, because I could tell like he didn't want that to happen. Cause like the way he cried, I was like, dang, you're crying more than me. But like, that was that was one of my favorite moments in the game, and probably the hardest, because I was like, I don't want to mess up anyone's game with me leaving, but I also know that I have to, like, I can't physically do this anymore. So I talked to Charlie, and then I think shortly after that, Melanie is coming back. So at this point, I gather everyone in the tribe, and I'm like, okay, I think y'all should vote me out. Yada, yada, yada. I don't know exactly what I said. I know I said something about them being amazing and all that stuff, which is still true. But I was like, I'm leaving my my poncho for you guys to use as like an extra blanket or tarp or whatever you need it for. I'm leaving my socks for whoever needs them. I think I left something else. I don't know, but I was like, I love y'all. And then as we're walking out, I'm like, okay, but I'm still staying. Like, I'm not going to, like, I'm not thinking about redemption at this point. I'm not even thinking they're going to like send me there. So I'm like, I'm already talking about, okay, so can I help with the challenges and this type of stuff? Like, that's where my mindset went immediately. I was like, I just need to just like revamp and get my life together because I'm just nervous about these elements right now. And like, I'm starting to feel like my lungs are filling with liquid. I don't feel comfortable. Let me go. To which we then go to my tribal council and they ask, I think Melissa a question. And then they asked me a question, which then I explained the whole situation. And I wish they would have let me got my name written down on the paper, but it's fine. It was cool with the verbal one. I'm cool with it. But prior to us getting to the tribal council, I'm walking out and I'm talking to Trinica and I'm like, okay, but I still have to vote. Because like I still want to be messy a little bit. So should I vote for who I want out or should I vote for you? And they were like, you should vote for me. And she was like, I'm gonna act so dramatic. And I was like, okay, period, then I'll do it. It's fine, I'll do it. So we get there, I tell them all the things, and they all like go down the list, and I'm like Trinica, and Trinica's like, oh my God. And then they all vote me out. So then it's I think 8-1. Yeah, 8-1 vote. So then I'm out. And then, yeah.
So I guess, I suppose you could have played your shot in the dark, gotten the scroll, then not read the scroll if you really wanted the no votes.
I could have, and I thought about it because I was like, that would be also super messy if I was just playing this whole time and went and got the shot in the dark and then was safe. And then it was like, but I was like, that is way too messy to start the game with. I was like, even though like I know I probably shouldn't be playing like this, like you should probably go take care of your health. I was like, but what if? Like maybe I could do one more day. Let me just be messy just a little bit. But I was like, no, I really can't do this. And then, but I thought about it. I really did think about it.
So you choose the Clan of Redemption for reasons you kind of already explained. And with that, your Reelfoot game at this point is closed. However, you are still on site for the rest of the game.
Yes.
So talk to me about your post-game experience.
Okay, so after I like tell them I'm not going, obviously I have to take my stuff and take it back to the cabin. I almost pass out as I'm walking like to the cabin because like I'm like so winded and I'm like, okay, maybe you really should have like left the game because why are you like this right now? Like I was getting like more worried as I was leaving because I was like, bro, you can't breathe. Like maybe this is actually more serious. And I'm like standing there, I'm like, and I'm like, okay, just calm down. Maybe you're just panicking. So like I get to the cabin. Production's there, and I didn't realize they were getting set up for another challenge. So like I'm just thinking it's over for the night because like it was dark by the time I was out. So I was like, okay, they're done for the night. So they're like cooking fish for production, and I'm like, fish is my favorite food, but I'm like, I'm not hungry. Like I literally go up to the shower. I take a shower. I almost pass out up there, and I'm like, okay, let me just like again breathe and calm down. Like you're warm now. You're not freezing. You have warm clothes on. It'll be all right. You can get access to food. Chill. To which I go downstairs and I like grab a piece of fish, and I take like half a bite of it, and I'm like, no, I can't do this. So I set it down. I'll eat it later. I end up not eating it later, but then I realized that they're like the food that they were setting up also like at the same time was like random stuff, and I was like, wait, what is this? Like, to which I realized it's the gross food eating challenge, and I'm like, are you serious? I could have done this one. Like, why didn't y'all flip the challenges? I would have done this one for sure. So, but they're also like, okay, but since you're out the game, you can go watch the challenge. So I'm watching them, and like everyone's waving, and I'm like, but I can't wave back, so I'm just like smiling. But I'm watching, and I'm just like, okay. And I'm like, Carl and Trinica and all of them, they are beasts. Because the way they ate that stuff, I was like, okay, maybe I wouldn't have been as good, but I would have tried.
That thousand-year egg isn't your favorite thing?
I mean, I would have tried it if they would have let me have one. I mean, I ate the snake, so But yeah, so after that, after they finish that challenge, I go back inside, I get my phone, I charge it because like I don't even like care to look at it. I just turn it on. I text my mom. The service isn't working, so I'm like, forget it. I'm going to bed. I get in the bed and I go to sleep. To which the next morning, I get up and I'm like, I don't know what time it really was because I just wasn't paying attention to the time. I went and checked my phone, and they had breakfast cooked for us, and I I heard the conversation about orgs and LRGs and all this stuff like by production, and I'm like, why are they talking about this? Like, don't they know each other? Like, why is this a conversation right now? To which they all leave to go to a challenge, but I'm like noticing someone else is here, and I'm like, wait, who is that? I know this face. And it was James. And James at this point did not know what an org was, what an LRG was. This Reelfoot was his very first experience in all of this. So that was his perception for the rest of us. And when he found out that people knew each other and all that stuff, it was like, whoa. It was a shock to the face. And I was like, okay, well, at least I'm not a therapist, but like at least I have a background in psychology and I've played these games enough. So let me just like talk him through this. Like, that's what we'll do. So like we ended up chilling for the entire day. Like, we go and like get something to eat. And I'm like talking to him like basically the rest of the day. The next morning, I think Jordan gets there. So now it's me, James, and Jordan, and we go, I believe, to Walmart to get Jordan some things. So like we all go shopping that morning. And we start talking about like all of our experiences. Now, and the funny part for me was I was like being really consoling and stuff with James, whereas as soon as Jordan got out, she was like, we're not playing this. This was what happened, and this is how, like, this was the real like situation. And I was like, well, at least you got the good and the evil. But that was like, I think that was when it started to become like, okay, the game is starting to really move. This is fun. But it was also now I was hearing people's like games. Like I was like, okay, cool. It's now cool to see the other tribe. Because at this point, it was just us three for, I think, those. So I was.
Yeah. So Jordan joined you morning, early after, or late morning, day 5.
Yes.
And then you have Redemption concludes that evening.
Yes. And that's when they all come in. So at that point, it gets really chaotic. Not in a bad way. It just gets really chaotic. And like everyone is just like talking about their games. Everyone's hugging and laughing and like rehashing. And this was probably when it really became the most fun, because like now you're just chilling with people and you're like, people are talking crap about who's in the game and who they would vote for. And then obviously we would also like be able to like have dinner and drinks and all those things. So it was like a really just like party at that point. And then we would get to play the challenges if we wanted to. I know like Melanie and Jeff, they did it, most of them. Like they lived for that. And I was like, listen, I don't even want to go outside right now. So y'all have fun with that. But like that was the fun part of just everyone got to just do what they wanted. And we could now actually watch the challenges because like we have no like say in the game anymore. So it's cool to like have all of these people to just kind of chill around the house with and to get to know them more than that you got to know in the game. After that, then like I think that night concludes and we get Shauna the next day again because she got out and got back in and then out again. So Shauna comes in. Obviously, we can't talk to her, but like we wave and like kind of help her get herself like acclimated to everything, and then they lock her away in the jury hole. I forgot who came in next, but
Ethan. No, sorry, Carl did.
Oh, Carl. Yeah,
Shauna, Carl, Tony, Melissa, Ethan, Trinica.
Yes. So Carl came. So like now we didn't feel as bad anymore once Carl came, because it was like at least they have someone to talk to. Like we're good. And I feel like a lot of us were like, okay, when are they gonna get Carl out? Because it's probably inevitable, because a lot of them had a lot of beef with Carl. So from there, who's the next person? Ethan, and it was
Tony. So it's Shauna, Carl, and Tony.
Tony. Okay, Tony gets in. He's chill. We don't get to talk. Obviously, we never get to have our conversation this entire week, but it's okay. But Tony comes in, so like now it's like there's like they're just chilling, but we're now starting to play minis and stuff like that. So like Arir, I think it's their Thursday afternoon, and he starts playing his minis and stuff because like we're bored. Like now we have nothing to do. We've talked each other to death. Now we were like, let's go play something. So we start playing minis. I think the first one was it wasn't the mole or trade. It was traders. I can't remember. We played so many. They were all like they're all whatever at this point. But I know later on as people started getting there, they were like, okay, as long as we're not talking game about this game, it's fine. So I got to play a few games with the actual jury members, which was super fun because now it was like, okay, now we get to really play again with each other and just kind of intermingle. From there, as it got closer and closer to the end, I know that also the day James ended up leaving at one point. So he was the only one that left, which is sad, but like, I understand why he left, I guess. Then we get closer to the end and we're seeing more and more of them come in. And we're like, I felt like I was like the introduction to the like Ponderosa person.
You're the welcoming
first
committee.
Thing I do is like, I'm like, I want the hug. Come on in. And then I just start telling them where everything is. Now, also, production's like, okay, Danny, calm down. Like, they didn't tell me to calm down, but like, I would always be the first one to kind of run up on them just because I don't know. I wanted them to feel comfort as soon as they got back because, like, obviously they've been roughing it for days. But yeah, that's kind of where it ended for me. I think like we played a bunch of minis, and then we get to finale night. I go out there. I stand for maybe 20 minutes. I think I got through like their opening speeches, and I think Kiri was I don't know who was the first person that was to ask question. They started, and I was like, I'm going inside. I'll see y'all when this is over. Because like in retrospect, for it to be like a little bit over an hour for that, I was like, okay, I'm glad I came inside because I was sweating already. We're not doing this. Like I was back acclimated to my regular life at this point. So I was like, I'm not doing the outside anymore. Y'all can have that. Then we get to finale night, the real part of the finale night, and Maddie wins. Everyone's like congratulating him, and then they start the auction. Now, I wanted as much stuff as I possibly could get. And so like obviously I had my own Okina buff. As you see, I have the merge buff. Blake, my twin, gave me his extra non-Kana buff. And then I have a bag of things as far as our tribe flag, as far as the one that's at camp. I have the one that you like carry, and I wanted that one specifically because I carried it the most, at least while I was in the game. Then I got everything else was just like the regular stuff that everyone got, as far as like your backpack, your little sticky thing with your name on it. I ended up getting some tree mail, even though I don't like them. I got fire tokens because they were cool looking. And I think, and then I got my superlative, and I think that's all that's in there. I can't remember, but I think that's all I got.
What superlative did you get?
Saddest elimination, which I'll take. I'll take that.
So how do you plan on displaying, or where do you plan on putting all your winnings?
So I plan on moving by the end of this year. So, because like I still live with my mom right now, but by then I'll have my finances together. So I plan on, at least if I get a 2-bedroom house, which I think that's what I'm planning on doing, I'm going to like kind of plaque it on one of the walls, like cover the whole wall with it. I don't know, because like it's a lot of stuff, but I also know I'm probably going to occasionally want to wear the buffs. So I don't know if I want to hang them. So I'm still trying to figure it out, but it'll be hung up somewhere in some fashion.
Yeah, I feel like we've gone through everything. Is there anything else about your game that you want to talk about that we haven't had a chance to get to?
Can I talk about who I wish I could have worked with?
Well, I mean, that will be one of the questions I'm going to ask you. So yes, go for it.
Okay. Because if I could look at the game and where it ended, I think the person that I would have worked with the strongest would have been Jordan. And I say that just because of like she has something of like kind of like how I refer to some of my like best friends. Like it's like an unspoken language. Like there was today in our like group chat, they were sending pictures of her at the Blake tribal, and they were like, "Is she crying or something like that?" And I was like, "No, it's just a petty laugh." And Jordan was like, "Hey, I'm glad you know me." And I was like, I mean, I could tell it by your face. You're literally laughing at him because you voted him out. Like I don't even know what is happening in this, but I could tell. So I think Jordan and I would have worked phenomenal because I feel like we could have just cut eyes and we would have known what to do. Um, I also think that I wish I would have gotten a chance to really like, even though she was first out, I really would have loved to work with Debbie. But obviously she was on the other tribe. Like I wish I could have gotten like I think this pink thing was like that's why I probably should have been over there. They should have flipped me and Blake, put me on the pink tribe and put him on green. Because I would have been I think I would have been a lot more comfortable, I think, because I knew majority of them. So like I could easily build something there. Whereas my actual tribe, I didn't know them, but I also love the like because I have this issue in orgs of like I don't want to play with the same people. So I was glad that I was playing with people who I had no idea who they were. So that's where it was like, okay, I'm glad I got this experience because that's what I probably needed. Because to play Friend Viver is not going to be fun when you're like voting out the. I mean, granted, it's fun to vote out your friends, but I don't want to like.
You heard it here first, people.
But like I feel like I would have been able to be more connected within that tribe, if that makes sense. Because like I would have had Carl, I would have had Kira, I would have had Debbie, I would have wanted to work with Jordan, and I definitely think I would have wanted to work with Shauna. So I mean, nothing against the others. I'm just saying those like I got to know them as well. So like that's where I'm like I would have wanted that would have been a thing for me. But I love the group that I had because again they're all phenomenal players, and you see we span the entire season. So I mean we're not a big chunk like some of them. So
well, as we wrap up, I have some final questions the lob your way. You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
So you already answered the who do you wish you had a chance to work with but didn't. So who surprised you the most in the game?
I think Kiri.
How come?
Just because of like how small she is, and like usually like for how they got rid of Debbie, I was like, okay, they're gonna get rid of Kiri too, just because she's a small petite woman. But also like Kiri said it to me herself that like she's not meant for that, but like she does it because she can, and I'm like, I mean, I was surprised. Like I didn't expect her to go as far as she did, but it's also me like. I guess I don't know her as well as I thought I did, you know, but that's where I'd love to be surprised because she was a surprise to me, I think.
What was your favorite challenge you competed in?
I think Idle Hands.
What was a favorite moment at camp that maybe we haven't talked about?
I really think it was when I was the Machete King. I wasn't called that, but I'm going to call myself that because I was just like going maniac crazy one day with the like I was just like chopping everything. Just because I had just learned how to do it. So I was like, let me just start hacking everything. But I think that would probably be one of my favorite moments because like it was something I always wanted to do, but I never like had a machete to be like, let me just go slice and dice some things up. So I think that was one of my favorite moments.
Let's say Reelfoot is having a returning season. What is one player, not yourself, from your season you'd like to see come back?
Charlie.
Let's say you do decide to go to Redemption. And so you're competing against Maddie P, Blake, and Jeff for a chance to get back in the game. Do you think you'd had a shot?
Yes. But at the same time, I think no. And I say this because all three of them were non-Kana. Why would they randomly vote me back in? But I feel like I could socially try to manipulate it. But I don't think I could have won any of the challenges. So
how's your fire making skill?
I was fine.
Okay.
Like I'm not the best, but like I learned while I was out there. So like I feel like I would have been fine to do it. Because like, that was something I had like I was doing it even when it was like raining. I was like, okay, well, I'm bored. I'm like, even if it's not going to start, I'm going to try it anyway. So, because like I forgot who was saying that. They were like, you probably shouldn't be trying to do this. It's like the leaves are like soaking wet, and I'm like, I don't care. I'm gonna do it anyway. So I don't know. I think that I think I would be decent. If I'm under pressure, I would be like I would be ready to go.
If you could go back in time and tell yourself one thing before the game began, what would you tell yourself?
Eat a full breakfast before you go.
So that was the thing. The first game I ever played, I walked in an empty stomach and I was like, never again.
Never again. Literally never again.
I need to write this down because I had it in my head and it slipped away.
You're fine.
You know, what has been your friends and family's reaction to you competing in this experience?
Okay, so my mom specifically, she was like, she texted me. As soon as I got out, she was like, "I'm proud of you. I'm glad you went out and did what you said you could do." And I was like, that's all I needed, because most of my confessionals I ended and I'm like, "And Mom, I told you I could do this." So I'm like, to hear it when I get out before she even sees it, I'm like, okay, that felt good. My friends, they're like, "I don't know what's wrong with you." My family, like the men in my family are like, "I'm proud of you. I'm glad you went out there." The women are just kind of like, whatever. My grandmother's like, "What is Survivor? I don't know what you're talking about." But my coworkers are like, my boss, she was like, "Hello, my little local celebrity," the first time she came back and saw me. And I was like, "Don't do this to me. Like, do not do this to me." So like the perception is very like, why would you do this? But I'm glad you did this kind of thing.
What do you feel like you take away from this experience?
Oh, a lot, honestly. I've said a few times that like this experience has been probably one of the most life-changing, because I did not ever expect to be outside for 3 days like that. Like, especially in the rain, sleeping on the ground, not eat, like doing nothing of basic human necessity in the regular world. So like, I feel like that made me feel a lot more alive. I feel like, because like I didn't ever expect to make fire with the machete and flint. I never expected to chop wood or do any of those things. So it was like, and also to live with people that I have no idea and be able to build trust, but also know that eventually is going to have to like break those trust and those bonds. So it was like learning more about myself more than anything, of like what I'm capable of more so, and learning to like, sometimes even if you're scared of things, do it anyway, because what you're scared of is more so the thing that you got to learn. And I think that this was something that I learned a lot about myself, because a lot of the times I was like, I don't want to be out here. But then I'm like, okay, but you signed up for this, so go with what you signed up for.
So would you play a live game again?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Like, no questions asked.
Would it be like Reelfoot 7 days, or maybe we pick a smaller, shorter one?
I would do Reelfoot again.
Okay.
I would just prepare myself as far as eating and clothing a little bit better. But I would do any version. I don't care if it's 2 days or if it's a month. I don't care. As long as I can get off work, I'm cool with it.
So it's safe to say you're hooked.
Yeah, like I'm with it. Like, but you know, as long as she's calling me her little celebrity, I'll just like, I'm sure she'll let me go.
Well, wait until the episodes come out and see, and that'll be fun.
Oh, that'll be awesome, because I haven't told them anything either. Like, they know that I didn't win necessarily, but they don't know anything else. So I'm just trying to keep them in the void until we get the episodes, because that way I'm be like, "Hey, everyone, here you go."
Danny, is there anything else about your experience you'd like to talk about that we haven't had a chance to get to?
I don't think there's anything else. I think other than people should definitely apply for next season.
Well, Danny, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to walk me through your adventure at Reelfoot. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone who's been tuning in. This is one of many Surviving Reelfoot, the Decennium Deep Dive podcasts. If you are wanting more, don't fret. I'm doing one at 6:30 a.m. Central Time tomorrow morning with the winner of the season. So be there or be square. But Danny, again, thank you so much, and have a good evening, everyone.